Hi guys, welcome to my latest video. So I thought I'd start off a tutorial series called the AAA Way. And it's basically a chill but serious gameplay programming series for devs who are tired of spaghetti blueprints and half-explained tutorials. So most tutorials online show you how to click things and not how to build proper scalable systems that you'll find in a real game studio. So in this first episode, we're setting up a clean, modular interaction system. The kind that is easy to expand, reuse, and maintain as your project grows. Whether you're making pickups, doors, switches, weapons, the system will be your foundation. So if you want to level up your Unreal Engine skills and actually think like a gameplay programmer, you're in the right place. So let's build it the AAA way. So let's get started. First of all, I just made a folder here called interaction. That's up to you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a blueprint and a blueprint class. And we'll just make this of type actor. And what we're making here is the BP parent actor. Actually, the interaction parent actor, right? And we're going to click on this. And then this is really up to you and your needs, but I'm going to give you a basic structure that works really well for 99% of use cases. So we're going to add a static mesh in here, and we're going to make this the root. We can just rename it, press F2 and rename, and we'll call this interaction mesh. Right. So what we'll do here is now we'll add a widget. So just click on add and search widget, and let's call this interaction widget. Now this is all going to be super easy to follow, so don't worry. The next thing I want to go ahead and do is I want to check out the static mesh's collision. So what you'll see instantly is we got collision presets, and I'll put mine on custom. And what we want to go ahead and do is make a custom one called interaction, right? So your project won't have this one. So I'll show you how to make this custom, trace response. So we'll go to edit, project settings. And then let me just pull this up. We'll search channels. And then I'll just, for the sake of it, delete this one. So here you'll see you have trace channels and object channels, right? If you haven't done this before, you can make a bunch of custom trace channels or object channels for overlapping collisions, trace channels more for traces. And we're going to be using a trace for the system. So that will come now. So what we'll do is we'll make a new trace channel, and we'll call this interaction, right? And you can set a default response. This is the default response that every object in your scene will have. So let's put it on ignore. Because if you think about it, we don't want our trace that we're going to push out to overlap or get a response from everything, right? Only the objects we set it to. So you can compile and save, and you'll see there should pop up an interaction trace. And what we can do is we can just click on block, right? So that's all you need to do, and that is great. And the next thing we can go ahead and do is we can actually go and make the widget, right? We have an interaction widget here. So the widget's also going to be super easy. I'm just going to make something basic. You can go ahead and make something super complicated if you want, but for now, I'm just going to go right click, user interface, widget blueprint, user widget. So let's call this WBP interaction widget. That's cool. So let's double click it in. First thing we need is a size box. I love size boxes, but you'll see why now. Let's go ahead and just put this on desired, right? So just click there and put it on desired. And let's do width override, height override. And let's do something like 200. Let's do something like 50. And we'll compile and save this. And then the next thing we need is a horizontal box. So we probably want some text and some image, right? Once again, you can just put text in if you need, but I'm just going to make it super nice real quick. So I'll just pop a text in here, and I'll pop an image in here. So my image, I already have one. So I have an E key right here. And you can easily find this. I literally just downloaded this off Canva, but you can get it wherever you want. And now you'll see we've got some, some ugly looking UI right here. Let's just try a bunch of things to make this look nice. That's basically UI summed up. So I'll make this maybe like 40 by 40, right? That's a good start because the height is 50. So what I'll do here is I'll just put this on horizontal alignment on center and the vertical alignment on center. And then this one, I'll put it on full actually, right? So it fills the whole space. And then we'll also just align it center. So that looks great. And let's just say something like interact, right? You can say use or whatever, If you want to make it smaller, then you just go ahead and change this size like here. So we can maybe set this to 170. That looks great. Maybe let's change the font to something like Roboto Tiny. I don't know if I said that correctly. Right, so that looks fine. Kind of looks like Call of Duty. Next thing you can do is just go here on your interaction widget and scroll all the way down to when you see the user interface options here. So the space we're going to put on screen, the widget class, that's your WBP interaction widget. Cool. And then this draw size, you actually want to just match it with what you have here, right? So we have 170 by 50. So we'll put this on 170 by 50. And if you want to take a look at it, it's super easy. We can go and actually go here and just drag your interaction parent in here. And when you press play, you'll see we have a cool little interaction widget floating there. And no matter the distance, it sort of stays the same size, which is great. So that is all cool, but we don't want the interaction widget to show all the time, right? Only when you can actually interact with that object. So by default, we'll set it to invisible and we'll compile and save. And let's go and delete this one. Okay. So what we're basically going to do is we're going to take our camera. This can be first person, third person, whatever you're using. And you'll see when we look around, we can actually go and we can throw a trace. And if you don't know what a trace is, it's basically like a laser that shoots from wherever you start to wherever you want it to end. And that trace will interact or get blocked by something, just like a laser gets blocked by an object. So that's all super easy to understand. So let's go ahead and set up that trace. So I've got my first person blueprint and my first person character here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a function called interaction trace. I'm going to do a capsule trace, right? If you're wondering why I'm doing a capsule trace specifically, a capsule trace is super nice because we have some room for error, If we just use a line trace, we have to aim at that object absolutely perfect every time for this to happen. So what we'll do is we'll take the first person camera and we'll say get world location, right? And that will be our start. So this will be the center of where you want your trace to start. And then now we can also get the forward vector. And by the way, if you don't know this trick, if you just add it at the forward vector times like an arbitrary value, like 200, and you plus it by the world location, you get a straight line in that direction every time. So we can start this and we'll just hook it up there. The trace channel, make sure you set this to interaction, right? That's the one we set up. And then draw debug type, let's do for 1 frame so we can just know exactly. And then the radius also, before we forget, just put it on something like 20 and 20. Ignore self is on, right? So you can compile and save, and then let's put this on tick. So it's actually okay to put traces on tick, especially if it doesn't overlap with everything. You don't want to put a lot of heavy stuff on tick, like generating overlap events, stuff like that. That's going to cause a lot of problems in the future. the next thing we want to do is we actually want to put some logic into this function, right? So let's just do an example real quick. So we can pull out a branch here, and then this is going to go ahead and give us a big result. And we want our heat actor, right? This heat actor is going to be this interaction variable. But right now we want to make the system modular. So one way we can actually go and do something is we can cast to our BP interaction parent. Don't do this, by the way, because this is just to show you. And we can press true, and we can execute whatever function we want in there, like show the widget, hide the widget. But this is going to cause a bunch of dependencies between you and all the interaction objects. And it's just very inefficient, unscalable code, right? So what we're going to do is we want to set up a way for our actor and our first-person character to communicate. So what we can do is we can use something called an interface. If you haven't worked with an interface, it's a really cool way for, to call generic functions of certain actors or objects. So we'll call this BPI interact. And this is our interaction interface. And in here, you'll see you can add a bunch of functions. And let's add a function for maybe show interaction widget, right? And then we could put an input in here. And let's just do show widget. So that's fine. Maybe we can make another function and we can just say interact. This will cause the interact logic. And maybe we can make another function and we can say get interaction object data. And we can output some sort of data, whatever it might be, like a string. And we can just call this output. I don't think I'm going to use this now, but I just wanted to show you that you can actually just use this to make and get whatever data you want without having unnecessary dependencies. Okay, so now that we have this interaction blueprint interface, we can go into our interact parent actor. And then here by class settings, you can actually just go to interfaces and then add BPI interact. So that's cool. Now we've added this interface and you'll see we actually have all this data, right? So let's just double click on one function, show interaction widget. And what do we want to do here, right? This is super easy. We just drag the interaction widget and search set visibility. And we can just put this on, hook this up in here. The rest of the logic will be executed somewhere else. We can do interact, and let's do just for now a print string. This interact will actually most likely override in our child classes. So don't worry about it if you don't understand what I just said. I will show you. But what's nice about this interact interface that we just did, we can call this off any actor. And if this actor has this interface, it will execute. So we can just go and drag off the heat actor here, and we can search the interaction widget. And if we set this to true, you'll see what will happen now. So before we go on, let's just make like a quick child actor here. So let's right click, create child blueprint class. And let's do something like a BP key for now, right? Nothing major. In our interaction mesh, we will just go here, and I have a key object here. You can find this wherever. And let me just make sure something. Okay, that's fine. And the reason I'm just checking that real quick is because I want to simulate physics. So this is just to show you as well, like you can, if you have weapons that needs to simulate physics, or if you have something that needs to drop and fall, you can do that. And your other interaction objects don't have to simulate physics. Okay, so we have our key here. Let's just drag it in here. And what I'll do is I'll just drag a few in here. So we have our key. Let's just duplicate a few of them. just so I can show you some use cases. Actually, I don't want to see this trace anymore. I know it's more or less right. So I'm just going to go into my interaction function, which is right here, and then just put this on none. So that was literally just to see. And you'll see if we look close to it, this interact widget pops up. And that is great, right? But if we go away, all the interact is still there. And if we have multiple objects, all of them highlight, which is not great. Also, by the way, what's nice about this system is you have this interact widget, and you can maybe just drag this a little bit up and a little bit forward, right? Or backward. And you'll see you can just debug like every little object's interact space. And that's fine. So we got that working, but now we need some sort of system to detect if we are looking at one actor and if we're not looking at that actor. And to do that, we actually need to do something that's a little bit complicated, but it's actually not that bad once you understand it. What we need to do is we need to save this heat actor. So let's delete this. So what we'll do is we'll save this one. We can just promote it to a variable. And what we'll do is we will call this our current interaction actor. Oh, actually, I forgot to delete my variables because I did this before. So you're just going to drag this off and say promote to variable. And we need a current interaction actor. So that's fine. Let's save that one. And then we actually need to save the last interaction actor. So if you think about it, we're looking at an actor. We save that actor. Then we're moving off it. And then we're looking at that actor. So this will be our new current interaction actor. But we also need a way to tell this interaction actor to not show widget anymore. So how will we do that? We can save our interaction actor every time on tick. We can save our previous interaction actor every time on tick as well. So how this will work is we can just make a new variable here. You can just duplicate this and call this our last interaction actor. And we can just save this or set this, and we will set it to our current interaction actor. So this will execute, our last interaction actor will save, and then we'll find a new current interaction actor. And then our last after this tick executes, so a new tick begins, and then our last interaction actor will be set again. So now we have both here. We have the last interaction actor and the current interaction actor. And this will happen like very quickly. It will happen on tick. So every like 0,01 or 0.1 or whatever a frame is. And that's fine. So the next thing we can do is we need to go and do some checks, right? We need to just put a branch in here and search for last interaction actor and current interaction actor. And we first want to check if these are the same. So we can just put a not equal in there. And if they are not equal, we can take our last interaction actor. And then let's just do like some safety checks. We convert this to a validated get. This will basically only execute if this is valid. So let's put this on true. And then we want to search our show widget. And we want to put this on false. And then there's another case. We actually, before we forget, we need to set our current interaction actors widget. So let's just show interaction widget. And we put this on true. So all that's happening here is we taking our current interaction actor, we're getting it, and we're telling it, show your interaction widget, because you are the current interaction actor. Now we check if the last interaction actor and the current interaction actor is not the same. So we're checking, are we still looking at this one, right? If we're not still looking at, if we are looking at that same one, or if we are not, we want to just take our last interaction actor and disable the show widget. And then what we can also do is we just put a little bit of safety in here. We can put a sequence in here at the false. And then let's take our current interaction actor, convert to validated get, and then our last interaction actor and convert to validated get. So I know this might be a little bit much, but you'll see the exact result. And you can actually use the same logic to do stuff like highlight functions, or, if you have a cool post-processing material to highlight objects, you can do that. This is all working like this. Let's do show interaction widget for both of them. And we just put this on false, just so we, hide the interaction widget if we're not looking at anything. And then we also just want to set our current interaction actor to null and our last interaction actor to null, because we are not looking at anything. And we also set it to null because we will make a use function now, or a use input. And that use input will check if this is valid. And if it is valid, it will actually execute an arbitrary function that you defined. So this is all like super a little bit complicated, maybe a little bit much if you're still starting out, but I'm sure you'll understand it once you see the result now. And you can see we have this beautiful interaction widget that shows up depending on which object you look at. The next thing we want to go ahead and do is create an input. So I already created a IA use input, but let's just delete it right here. So what I'm going to do is I'll just duplicate our jump input. You can also create it yourself, but I just, in the spirit of efficiency, let's do IA use, and it has a pressed and released. It doesn't need a released. We can delete that. Just needs to happen on pressed, right? Maybe you want to do a release. And then the next thing, you just want to go into your IMC default, wherever your input mapping context is, go and put IA use in there and make sure it's on E. So just click there and press E. Mine auto set because I did it before. Okay, so that's fine. And you can see we can search for IA use, and then we can take our current interaction actor, we can get it, and we can convert to validated get. And you can see if we put it on triggered, we can put it on started, doesn't matter. We can actually call our interact message, right? So if we call this, our interact message will show, or interact function will execute, sorry. So if we go here into interaction and we have our parent actor, you'll see we just did something like say hello. So let's go ahead and test that. If we press E, it will say hello. So let's just do something a little bit more case specific. So we have our key here, and then if we click on interact, and we can maybe just say destroy actor, that's fine. Maybe we want to have, I remember us having a function called get interaction object data. Maybe we can just put a name like key, and we can just do some sort of arbitrary function as well before you use. You can just say get interaction object data, and you'll see we can save this or do whatever. For now, I'm just going to print string, and that is fine. And that's just to show you like how you can get data from this. Like if you wanted to have like different interaction objects, if you have keys, if you have anything and you want to know what you're interacting with, you can do something like that. And you'll see if we can just go and so press E, and you'll see we will delete the key. Okay, so that's all working perfectly. Let's go and do something else. Let's create a child blueprint class. We're going to just click create child blueprint class. That is a tongue twister. And we'll do like a BP door. Maybe we'll do one that says a BP switch. And we'll just do some quick logic on this, right? So our BP door, our interaction mesh will be our door frame. And you can see we pop that in there. And then we want to just add a door in here. So you can see we can add more stuff. It's not necessarily limited to that structure. You can add collisions, you can add anything you want. So we can take our door maybe, and just for the sake of it as well, make sure that, blocks the interaction trace. Maybe we can take our interaction widget and just put it here close to the handle. So that's fine. We can take our interact function and we can override that. Let's add a timeline. And this is not really a tutorial to open doors, but this is just a quick, I just want to show you the modularity of this system we just made. So let's say open door, and we can just do a flip flop. And we can open door, play, and we can reverse. Right, let's just put something in here, and let's just see quickly. We want it to rotate, from 0 to -90. And that's easy. We can put a track in here, add flow track, door rotation. We can put this on 0.5. 0.5. Let's put a key in here at 0 and 0. Let's put another key in here at 0.5 and -90. Okay, so that works. Let's go and take the door, set relative rotation, and put this on update, split this, and then put the door rotation in there. So that is great. Let's drag and drop this door blueprint in here. And you can see if we press play, we have views, and we can open and close the door. So here's just a quick other use case where I actually just did basically the same logic and I just put it on a light switch. Cool. We can open the door, close the door. We can pick up a key, get data from that key, however you want to make this system. So here's a first-person project that I recently did for a client. And you can see if we use the same system like on picking up ammo, we use the same system on picking up weapons. See, I can pick this up, function can execute, play like a switching animation. We can pick up these different ammo, and it all works great, all works fine. And that is how you can use it with weapon. All right, guys, so that's that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if you want anything specific after this, but I will try and make it on a bunch of generic topics just so you guys have a good reference for a good way to do things. And what I'm about is all about clean, modular, and scalable systems. And you can clearly see how you can scale this system to work with anything. And you can even fine-tune the system and make children and do super specific systems. So it's all up to you, all up to your imagination. Let me know if you do want anything specific. Let me know if you want me to do this in C++. And yeah, have a good day. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.